And I'm just confirming stream. All right, fantastic, folks. You're streaming. Have a great meeting. I'm here if you need me.
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So we have the agenda for today. We have 2 items. We have the selection of the chair and vice chair, and then we have the committee meeting dates. As part of the committee meeting dates discussion, I think Brandy's confirmed with you all that the 3rd Tuesday of the month at 9:30 works for everybody. So we will get those dates in your calendars. But Steph's team, Ms. Schlichter's team, is going to provide a brief presentation concerning for future meetings, like give some examples of mandates from other arts advisory committees for the committee to consider, and then at the next meeting start working or approving a specific mandate for this committee. Before I get into the appointment of the chair, just wanted to provide you some examples of what some of our other advisory committees, what kind of decision points they make, and what kind of things that they do. Because they probably didn't go into a lot of detail at one of our previous meetings that we've had. So we have a number of advisory committees. We have a Heritage Barrie, we have Accessibility Advisory Committee, we have a Seniors Advisory Committee, we have now the Arts Advisory Committee. We also have the Active Transportation and Sustainability Advisory Committee, say that 10 times fast, and a few others that I can't think of because I haven't finished my coffee this morning. But just to show that we do have a lot of advisory committees to council. Some of the advisory committees, and I can see this one being quite active, they make recommendations that go up to the food chain to council on maybe arts programs that, or arts programming or arts facilities or whatever, or those are kind of things that I probably see as part of your mandate, but I'll let Steph and Rob probably expand on that more. But if you make recommendations, they go up the food chain to council. One of the committees that's quite active is our Active Transportation and Sustainability Advisory Committee. They have done a lot of work on climate issues, a lot of work on active transportation in the parks and roadways. And what they do is, like, staff will bring, if they want to do, for example, one of the things that's been brought to the committee for active transportation is if they're redoing a park, or they want to make some bike lanes or something like that, they'll bring those to the committee for review and discussion and some input. So that's kind of also some of them, what this committee would be about, is Stephanie and Rob bringing things back to the committee, maybe for some input, some recommendations, or just to kind of bring an awareness to what we're doing here at the city. So hopefully that kind of explains it in a nutshell, and for what kind of role this advisory committee would have. And I think it might be a little bit better to re-explain it once you have your mandate in place, because once you have your mandate set, you guys will have kind of like a framework to what this committee will be undertaking and doing under the guidance of Amanda, Rob, and Stephanie. So with that, I'm going to go with the first agenda item, which is the appointment of the chair. Does anybody want to volunteer to be the chair so that I can step away from the role for now? And if somebody wants to put their name forward, and if a person puts their name forward now and then in a couple months they don't feel comfortable being the chair of the committee, absolutely the committee can switch around the chair at any point, or have a chair and a vice chair, and they can switch off meetings here and there to who chairs the meeting. So is there anyone that would like to volunteer to be chair? don't all raise your hands at once.
If nobody else wants to do it, I can do it. I chair a lot of meetings as a president of the chamber. I chamber all our chair all those meetings in Orma Dante. So if nobody else wants to do that, I will. But if somebody else wants to, I'm happy with that too. So
Thanks, Greg. Seeing no other hands being raised, Greg, I will congratulate you on being the chair.
all right, thanks.
And then we should appoint a vice chair as well, just in case Greg can't attend a meeting. Then we have backup. So is there anybody that would like to be vice chair?
I'll put myself forward as vice chair.
Good.
Okay,
Thank you.
great, thank you.
I thought we should have an arts vice chair. Great one.
Great, thank you. Thank you. to
Wendy,
both.
could I just ask a little bit of a question?
Of course you can.
I noticed that there's quite a few organizations, or as I put it, a lot of fingers in the arts pie in Barrie. Can we at some point, before too long, define how this group fits in with all of those? Because it seems like there's a lot of overlap, and I think if we're clear in the beginning of how we fit into it, we'll maybe prevent any going down the wrong path and covering the wrong area.
I think that's where Stephanie and Rob can provide guidance to the committee and with the establishment of your mandate to make sure that, you know, you complement the other arts organizations and not, I guess, for lack of a better term, interfere or overlap, so to speak. So I think that with Stephanie and Rob, they're the experts in this field. I am not. So they will provide you guys great guidance. And I think when you set your framework and your mandate, I think that'll help the committee kind of know where they kind of fit with all the other arts committees and how that you can complement the arts community in Barrie. So with that, since I'm no longer the chair of the committee, I'm going to pass it over to Greg.
Okay, so I guess it'd be a little awkward to kind of get things started for me. So I missed the last meeting. And probably the introductions. I assume you guys kind of did introductions at the first meeting, so everybody knows who each other is. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did a round. Yeah, we did a round.
Okay, good. So because I didn't get a chance to do that, I'll just let you know. My name's Greg Grew, and I've been involved in the arts community in one way or the other in Barrie for probably 8 or 9 years now. I'm the executive director of the Central Ontario Music Council. We're just kind of getting going now as a formal organization, building a lot of kind of websites and infrastructure and such like that behind the scenes, but you'll see a lot more from us over the next few months, especially heading into the new year. I'm also the vice president of the Huron Symphony Orchestra. I've had that for a long time, and the president of the Orma Dante Chamber of Commerce, which is a position I'm leaving over the next couple of weeks to free up more time to do things like this and other things I like. So that's a really quick introduction. There's not a lot on the agenda really for this meeting. And again, because I wasn't at the last meeting, I don't really know where you guys want to, if there's anything that you guys need to talk about, want to talk about, topics that was to be brought up. So I don't, Ian, you were at the first one. So as vice chair, maybe you can help me out a little bit with where we're going for the first meeting, and then we can kind of touch base before the next one as well.
Sure, there was an agenda sent out. I guess, like, were there minutes distributed from that meeting?
I didn't see any.
No.
So the minutes, sorry, the minutes we don't circulate the minutes to the committee. It's a committee, it's called a committee report. So committees do not approve their own minutes. It's just a report of what happened at the meeting. The only thing that would get sent up for any approvals would be, any recommendations that this committee would have would go to city building, general committee, and then council. Just to help you out there, Greg, we have the other agenda item is just the schedule of meetings, but Stephanie has a few slides that she would like to present to the committee this morning, just to provide some food for thought for establishing a mandate. And then there are going to be some circulation of some materials to the committee in advance of the next meeting. so that you can start working on the framework and the mandate for this committee.
Okay, great. So regarding the schedule, the poll results came out with 9:30 on every third Thursday, every third Tuesday. So is everybody happy with that? Are we happy to go ahead with that? Any comments, questions, discussion on the issue, or do I have a motion to go ahead with that?
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Chair. I have for 10 a.m.
The 10 a.m.
10
Okay,
a.m. the
perfect.
third Tuesday. Yes.
10 a.m. Okay, perfect. Sorry, just taking notes as I go here. So is everybody happy with that? Or we're going to have a motion then, I guess, to approve that as the date for the meeting. So
Also move.
okay, let's have a second for the motion.
Here, Ian.
Any further discussion on the topic? Any questions or complaints or other ideas? Or and if not, then we'll go for a vote for that. All in favor for the third Tuesday, 10 a.m. Perfect. Thank you very much. So we'll go ahead with that. And it was Stephanie, I think that you had the slides to go forward with. So then we'll move on to that if the scheduling is done, if we could.
That's great. And this committee, we're a little bit funkier maybe in our setup than some of the other ones as they start, in the sense that when the recommendation went forward to create the committee, there wasn't a mandate officially set. And the rationale behind that was to really have the organizations that are engaged to determine their best role and how they wanted to help support council or provide feedback to council on supporting the arts. So I think that's why our first two, I think, will probably be a little bit clunky. I think once you land on the mandate, everything will flow quite nicely from there. So what Amanda did and what we talked about at the last meeting, there is the existing cultural master plan. It's from 2006. Amanda's put together sort of a bit of a summary of where that is, along with a marketing report that was done in 2010. So it's going to get nitty gritty in terms of talking about the recommendations and where they went. We will supply all of that post-meeting for your noodling. And then we also went ahead and pulled together, we just sampled a few municipalities that have arts advisory groups and pulled their mandates. So after that, we can share that. I'll share my screen that way. And we'll also share a couple from our existing city committees, because again, that might help frame where the next part of the discussion is in terms of mandates. So I hope that that's helpful for you, Chair. And certainly we, Rob and I and Amanda, look forward to working with you on sort of future agendas and how we can help tie some of those pieces together for you. So maybe what we'll do, if it works best, we can sort of start with where we've kind of been with the existing plans, and then maybe that ties into the mandate discussion. Is that okay flow for you, Chair?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, perfect. So Amanda's actually going to take us through the studies, and then we can take it from there.
Good morning, everybody. I'll just share my screen here and we'll get ourselves going. Okay, so can everybody see my presentation? Thumbs up? Some thumbs up, perfect. Okay, great. So as Steph mentioned, we took a look at the existing plans that reference culture, that mention culture as a strategic priority, or that provide recommendations for culture in Barrie. There were two main plans: Building a Creative Future, which was connected to our downtown commercial master plan. They were done in conjunction with each other, and both came out in early 2006. And then Created in Barrie, Understanding Barrie's Arts and Culture Markets was created in May 2010. There have been some other plans done that sector off into more specific arts and culture mandates, like public art or like music. Those, I think, once this committee has had a chance to really sink their teeth into their own mandate, if you're interested in learning more about those, I think we can certainly share those as well. But these are the two that were definitely the framework for all of the work that's been done over the last decade and a half. So building a creative future, a plan for culture was Barrie's first official culture master plan, and it created a 10-year path focusing on arts recommendations for our downtown. And that was done because the downtown commercial master plan really identified culture as a component of the success of downtown revitalization and laid out arts districts and spaces within the downtown that could be focused on cultural development. The plan included a recommendation to create an arts policy, a 10-year direction for the city via a cultural development office, facilities planning recommendations for the following 10 years, recommendations for granting to support arts organizations, and a business case for arts and culture investment. So of the capacity building and sort of sustainability recommendations, we have accomplished quite a bit of those. So the creation of a cultural development office was done in 2007, and then it shifted to creative economy in 2016 before culture development moved into the economic and creative development department in late 2019. And some of our other culture business units also live in recreation and cultural services. So a cultural policy is fairly broad, but we have created specific policies around special events, public art, and some of our other work units. One of the other recommendations, collection and maintenance of arts sector data and reporting, and the continuing analysis and monitoring of the health of the arts sector has been ongoing since the creation of the department through various streams and various formats. We participate on the Canadian Cultural Statistics Consortium through our Creative Cities Network of Canada that provides us with data. It's not always the most up to date because by the time the data is collected and analyzed, of course, it's been a couple of years, but it does give us a really good framework for the work sector and for some of the economic impacts of culture in our community and broader. The evaluation of arts organizations based on artistic program excellence, business practice, and commitment to education and community is done as one of the key pieces to our cultural grants program. Of that program, we just completed a review, and we have updates being implemented for 2022.
And this is for grants, is it? Just grants?
That last one was for grants, yeah.
That's not for policy. Okay.
No, that's just for the grants, yeah. And then the next couple of items, all of those were rolled into our cultural grants program. So it's an independent jurying process to institutions and through project funding for things like arts events, and then operating grants as well to our major organizations. So we did clarify some of our eligibility through our grants program review, and we will plan to update that program on a regular basis, and certainly after the creation of a new master plan. Formal recognition of the achievement of the arts has been ongoing since the creation of this plan through the Barrie Arts Awards, something we hope that you'll participate in future years. The planning for the future of the arts is a recognized partner with other city departments and other levels of government. So we've certainly partnered with many departments and other levels of government on projects, large facilities, places like Meridian Place, whether it's programming, oversight, governance, and partnership with organizations like the BIA. We also work very closely with all of our other departments when it comes to special event permitting and public art policy. So we certainly have built relationships and made sure that culture is top of mind when some of their projects happen as well. Creation of an arts advisory committee. When the department first formed, it was the Arts and Culture Council. Several years later, it became the Barrie Arts Committee, and now we have the Arts Advisory Committee that is a formal committee of council that just creates that extra level of communication and awareness about the impact of arts and culture in our community. Building awareness and integration of creative cultural opportunities into all city initiatives, projects, and programs and projects. So we have made sure to engage with other committees. We've met with the Heritage Barrie Committee. We've worked with the Accessibility and Sustainability Advisory Committee, and we've worked with other departments on projects including Winterfest, Meridian Square programming, public art, and culture days. And the last of the capacity building and sustainability pieces is reporting and submitting an arts and culture budget to council each year. So through our departmental budgets, we provide reports and we make requests for funding to support our various programs, as well as have an ongoing annual budget. These next several recommendations are around facilities and the plan that was put out, or recommendations that were put out for a 10-year plan for facilities. So when this was created, we didn't have the MADI, or what that then became the 5 points. The black box theater, I think, was just a bit of a glimmer in some folks' eyes at that time at 5 points. So the first recommendation was to develop a community cultural center. The footprint where we have the 5 points theater certainly wouldn't allow for all of the items listed there, but we did end up with a beautiful little incubator theater. Relocation of Georgian College's School of Design and Visual Arts. That's for the most part complete. Not the entire school has been moved downtown, but we do have our Design and Digital Arts Center at Ross Street now, and there's hopes for additional programs to be able to operate within that space. Work with Georgian College and Laurentian University to attract a school for the performing arts. At that time, that Laurentian University was considering Barrie for a new site. That did not happen. So that one recommendation is not complete at this time. Acquire strategic private properties for cultural development. That's incomplete at this time. There wasn't a lot to that recommendation in the plan, and what the thoughts were. Certainly, we partner with many organizations who have space to provide unique programming, and that's something that we've done through our Culture Days program most recently. And retain significantly publicly owned properties for cultural development. We've started to see a bit of an increase in public art, so certainly some publicly owned properties are being developed with that lens in mind. But at this time, we don't necessarily have a plan for additional cultural development, at least not until the official master plan is done, and then we'll see what happens with that. Develop an outdoor performing arts place. We all know and love Meridian Place, and we're quite happy with that space. And plan the development for a major performing arts center. So Fisher Auditorium site, we've got a performing arts center task force that has been struck, and I'm certain that they will be looking to some of these recommendations as they work their way through that project. Upgrade the Fisher Auditorium to serve as an interim performing arts center. The Fisher Auditorium was used in the interim during the last stretch of this master plan for various programming, including the Choral Days event, Choral Fest, sorry. But other than that, that was not necessarily something that was realized. There was some work that was done at Georgian Theatre to support some of the larger pieces, but we're excited to see what happens next. Develop a permanent indoor-outdoor market hall. The Market Precinct Task Force has been struck, and there are plans and there's opportunity to provide feedback about a market at 24 Maple Avenue. So that is ongoing. And develop storage facilities to meet with the unique storage needs of our arts organizations. That's something that was, I guess, made clear was needed in 2006 when this plan was being created. Whether that still applies or not, I think is something that maybe we can reach out to this group as well as others about. But I know that has been something that's come up in the past is storage. So it seems to be an issue for all of us. So this next one is about making a business case for culture, the next selection of recommendations. And we were quite successful with these as well. So maximize the participation and investment of other levels of government and other organizations in the development of cultural facilities and cultural planning. We seek funding from all levels of government regularly to support our capital projects, help plan with development, help develop plans and to develop programming. We also have been very successful in supporting the creation and enhancement of arts education programs within the work of arts organizations. Our grants program rewards organizations who provide arts education in their programming and work to develop the artists that are living within our community and working within our community. Formally review and recommend further cultural facilities development by 2010. So the Mady Center was developed within that time frame. Develop a marketing strategy for the arts in coordination with the CDO, which was the Cultural Development Office, the Economic Development Office, and Tourism Barrie. So the next plan that I'll review is created in Barrie under Stingsbury's Arts and Culture Markets. So that too was complete. Build and encourage strategic opportunities and programming between for-profit and not-for-profit cultural organizations. I think this is something that will be ongoing forever, but I think that's part of why the cultural development exists within economic and creative development, is so that we can work with our business community and engage in cultural programming. There was also a program at the national level, Arts Fest, that we used to participate in many years ago that would pair up arts organizations with businesses to develop programming. Implement the Art City public art strategy and investigate the incorporation of other cultural activities. So for those that have been in Barrie a long time, Art City was a project by the McLaren. The city of Barrie did participate in that project, and through it really worked to develop a public art policy. The next one, implement a one-time stability grant for 2006 for arts organizations pending the formation of the Cultural Development Office. So that recommendation really spoke to there was an urgent need for funding, for ongoing grant funding for our arts organizations in order to assist them in gaining access to funds at other levels of government and to level up and continue to grow their organizations. So for the 2007 year, $185,000 was approved. Commit to downtown as the principal location of cultural facility investment. We've done that with the plans for 2 theaters in our downtown. Design and plan arts events and festivals to retain and maximize the economic spin-off of cultural spending in Barrie and its downtown. Certain programming was developed with that specific frame in mind. The first thing that came to mind for me was Rhythm Fest. Other events that have come since then have been Culture Days and Game On, and increased programming at Meridian Place and 5 Points Theater that looks to engage our restaurants and our bars and our retail shops. Set goals for growing the cultural economy. This one's in process. I think it'll be a major part of our next culture master plan, and it's certainly part of the work that our department looks at doing, but I think it's something that we will also look to this committee to support us with and help us make sure that our goals are aligned with what the sector needs at this time. The last recommendation really looked to integrating and rationalizing the recommendations of the Downtown Commercial Master Plan and the Building a Creative Future Plan. That wasn't something that was ever completed after these 2 plans were done. Obviously, there were a lot of other recommendations to be done through each of those. So I think it would be worthwhile and valuable to consider any new downtown master plans or plans as part of the new culture master plan, or how those two work together. Just have a quick sip of water here. Up next is the marketing plan that was done. That was a direct recommendation of that culture master plan. And it was undertaken to understand the market for arts and culture in Barrie and its regional catchment, and intended to provide input to the culture department's strategic business and marketing plans, to provide market insight needed to plan future cultural infrastructure projects, and provide baseline data for measuring future growth of the arts and culture market. And it was aimed at being able to be used by any organizations that might need it in justifying or in providing impact about their sector. So there were several recommendations that came from that plan. The first was brand Barrie's Arts and Culture. It's incomplete at this time. Barrie has a very strong brand that has been rebranded not so long ago. And we do have the Invest Barrie brand, as you can see here on our slides. Arts and culture brand in Barrie may be something that we'll want to consider as part of a future plan. But for this time, we want Barrie to be Barrie, I think. Share market insight with arts and culture groups. So when we do receive new data sets, we share through newsletters, social media, direct email. And we're currently in process of collecting the most recent data available for the sector. We have a fantastic data analyst on our team, Venkata, who's been pulling together some really good information, but there's a lot of data there. So we'll get something to you as soon as we've got an impact report for Barrie. Use the media of the future. Of course, this plan was done in 2010. It kind of sounds funny now to say things like social media, digital marketing, and psychographic target markets as media of the future, but back then they were. So those are all things that we utilize, and all of our communications go through Access Barrie. There was a recommendation within that higher recommendation that there be one single stream for marketing and communications to the community, so folks know where to go to get their information. Festivals and events strategy and action plan started under the creative economy department, and with the special events team have been working on this over the last little while to ensure that our strategy and our policy align with the spaces and places that we have in Barrie. And improve arts and cultural spaces. So improvements were completed at 5 Points Theatre, Georgian Theatre, and Meridian Place, and those are always ongoing as changes need for the sector. So opportunities and future planning. So we're planning for an updated culture master plan. Right now, the hope is that that might happen in 2023. The Barrie Arts Advisory Committee is to craft their mandate and goals. And then the capacity building opportunities from that culture master plan that are ongoing. I think we have real opportunity to consider those as ongoing items that we might want to consider or might want to reflect upon and pull upon as we see the need. So considering careful investment in the artistic programs of our organizations, festivals, and events, and that's through partnerships and through grants. The building of sound arts business practices and plans, advancement of creativity through a wide variety of arts education programs, careful planning of arts facilities, directed oversight and marketing of the arts, formal recognition of our arts achievements through our upcoming Barrie Arts Awards in 2022, and the evolution of a uniquely Barrie-based arts and culture policy. So obviously these are very broad. They speak to many possible things, but I think as you work through your mandate and your goals, some of these items will definitely come to mind, and I think that we will certainly look for support in making sure that we're getting it right as we work through the sector. Another plan that we completed a culture report card in 2012 that looked at where Barrie was and sort of reanalyzed some of our data. It's something that was done because we received some funding through a specific branch of the government that was looking to do sort of data mining, to do major cultural inventories across, I believe it was the province. But that plan is something that I think, or that document is something I think we could update once we get to our new master plan and to some new data sets. I think that might be something that would be an interesting document to review with the committee and consider updating as sort of something that can be shared with council to give sort of a snapshot of where the sector is at that given time. So that might be something that the committee would like to consider as well. Does anybody have any questions? I'm just going to stop sharing so I can see you all.
Yeah, Amanda, quick question. Where might one find information about that festivals and events strategy and action plan?
Rob, are you able to provide an update on if the events team has had a chance to jump back into that since the pandemic? I know that they were working on it before, but.
Yeah, within the pandemic and throughout that process, the team had been laid off in some situations, so no work had been moved forward on that at this point in time. So it is on our plan to revitalize it and get working on it for 2022. So it is something that we'll be working on, Ian. And if you want some more information, we can certainly touch base with the special events team and we can start working on that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
What efforts have been made to get public input? I'm seeing a lot of input from arts communities and arts organizations, which I think, that's important. But I think it's also important to touch base with the community at large and to say, okay, are we on the right path? Are we going down the wrong path? Certainly since 2010, Barrie has changed and has expanded, I should point out. So the parameters that were done in that report are really outdated because Barrie is that much larger.
That's right. Yeah, I was looking at the data sets and I'm like, I don't think these really reflect us anymore. I'm not going to bother copy pasting these into a slide for you all. So Jerry, you make a really great point, and very much so for that marketing plan, that was a survey that was put out to Barrie residents and then to our broader catchment region of Simcoe County. And the Culture Master Plan was reviewed through community feedback opportunities. So back then, there wasn't our beautiful Building Barrie survey tool that folks could just go on and fill out, but they'd actually do town halls and they'd have slides and presentations available for folks to take a look at. So certainly any of our master plans are put through a community consultation process and feedback process, and that will be something that will be done as part of the new master plan, absolutely. And that new data set that we have Venkata working on, including the data or some of the data from the Canadian Cultural Statistics Consortium, that data is as new as 2019. So I think we're a little bit closer.
Amanda,
Yeah.
do you actually have the list of arts organizations in Barrie and that this group represents? Because it would be interesting to, like, I don't know. I mean, I know the obvious ones. And what would be really interesting, because I think there's a have and have not piece of arts in Barrie. And I think that it's really important this committee recognizes all the scope. We can help some more than others. And it's not by helping those less fortunate. It's about just making sure they have a voice, I assume. But like, do you have that information? Like, how many arts organizations would this group be representing, and what would their budgets be? Because that would give you a really good idea of who's there. Like,
Right.
I honestly don't.
We absolutely have the arts organizations and budgets for those that receive funding from us, or that would have received funding for us. I think most complete data we would have is for 2020. We would have, through the cultural inventory, which again is not the most up to date, from 2012, a more fulsome list of things like dance schools and art galleries and music lessons and all of those things. I don't know if you're looking more so just for like the not-for-profit side at this point, or if you wanted to look at like the full sector, we would have an incomplete set of data. But if we're looking more so at right now, maybe the not-for-profit side, I could provide absolutely that list. The other one would be much more like time consuming, because it would probably be a full update of the cultural inventory if we were going to do it properly, which we had someone come in and just work on that specifically for a 6-month period. Yeah, Steph.
So we did just over the course, and this won't capture everybody, but we did for the first time this past summer conduct a business data survey where we literally went, had a group of summer students going door to door, validating who's there, where they are, employees, things of that nature. Stats can, and there are some in terms of defining the creative cultural sector, will have some of those NAICS codes attached to it that define that. So we can pull some of that data. But again, anyone who's sort of operating independently from home, we won't have that fully encapsulated at this point. We'd love to get there from a future iteration of the data survey, but we need to start somewhere for year one, and that's something that would be grown to. So I think there are some tools to start defining an aggregate, because we will have some of that stats can data. But in terms of that comprehensive independent list, and again, what are we interested in? Is it just organizations, understanding the community as a whole? I think those are some great points. And certainly if that's something that is of interest, and the chair would like us to bring forward, or the committee would like us to bring forward for next round, we could certainly share what we have to date, and look at how we want to work with that data.
Yeah, the more data we have and the more groups we know, the better we can represent the community, the better we can do our job. So whatever you have, and I think however we can assist you, like, yeah, I'd be happy to assist in some of that as well, trying to put that list together. Can't devote a ton of time to it, but anything we can do to help, just let us know. If we can, the better the data, the better we can, the better job.
I'll get working on an aggregate list and sort of broken up with sort of some of the key things. So things like their organizations, schools, and some of the data that we have from our various sources, and have that free for the next meeting.
Yeah, the Barrie Arts Alliance, which is one of the groups I am representing here, also has a lot of that information as well. So Amanda, you and I could connect about that.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ian. Yes, Janet.
The other thing I'm wondering with all this, it may be that we can identify, if we just have a little talk around the different groups, actually somewhat identify those groups through the mandate so they feel that they have a voice here. Because I know when you say Arts Advisory Council, it's really hard to understand from where I am what exactly this group represents, and that's why I ask. But also I think that there are people that may feel that they are never heard, but if it's identified somehow through the mandate, I don't know if it's possible, but we don't want to make it too long, but at the same time, it could be recognized as a mandate. Then someone says, well, this group looks after it. Then we might be inclined to get more feedback or transparent communication. Because I suspect that communication is a big deal for these committees. People not really understanding what they're about. Or it could be a public notice in a communications piece. that says, this is the Barrie Arts Council, this is who we represent, if you have any, interest or whatever. So we create a dialogue, because I think a dialogue it'll open some doors, but more important, it puts you in touch with the people that you are actually serving. And maybe there are things aren't valid, but it's somehow you have to create something organic that people have, and they may not have any, they may be happy, but something I think more reasonable is you get a presentation to council from an advisory committee like this. And then if there's a forum of people being able to respond to what you're putting out, or from council, I don't know how you do that. I think you'd get a better job. You'd do a better job. Just thinking.
There are some great tools, if I could jump in, through our Building Barrie and through the Performing Arts Center Task Force and the Market Precinct that put out surveys to the public. And I would say they were quite well received. Over 1,000 responses on on the Performing Arts Center. And I think they are probably pushing 2,000. I'm not sure quite where they are on the Market Precinct because it's still open. So I certainly think there is interest and opportunity, and there are some tools that perhaps the committee could leverage from that lens, once you have a sense of, again, mandate and what do you want to gather from the community at large and or the arts community and as a focused.
I have a question about that. I guess there's just as an advisory committee, is there any reason why we can't do in-person outreach to people as well? Because in the past, there's been some great activities that have been done. I know the Music Council has done a few, and the Barrie Arts, is it called back then? Barrie Arts Committee, I think it was, with myself and Scott Hurst. And I know we had a big event where we had just basically an open house for arts groups to come in and talk about all their needs. Is there any reason that do we have to keep it all digital, or can we actually have in-person outreaches like that?
At this point, I would say, given where we are in our health restrictions, we would probably promote digital at this point. However, I certainly think where there's an opportunity to get into in-person, that you could do that. I would circle back with perhaps Brandy and Wendy just on any official guidance to that regard, but I would say that's probably where our position would be at this point.
Yeah, when I kind of consider this an in-person thing too, given the restrictions. I was referring more to just like, Facebook polls and surveys and stuff like that, rather than doing something like this. So the answer is we could do those types of events as well to connect people.
And at this point here, regarding meetings, it's my understanding that we don't have any indication with respect to committee meetings alone when there will be in person. At this point, we're just staying virtual. So anything outside of that, I know other committees have met off location with respect to things that they want to present back to the committee, that sort of thing. So that they kind of did that on their own and then brought stuff back. So at this point here, that's as much as I can help you with that.
Perfect. Great.
There's also, once we get back to the events and things, I know that previous iterations, at least at the Barrie Arts Committee, were quite successful in outreach at events, like community events. So things like a promenade days or even farmers market, things like that, garnering some feedback from the community, sharing what they were up to, that kind of stuff. So that's other things you might want to consider once the timing is right.
Great.
Okay, so if there was no other questions about my presentation, I'll let Steph jump in with some of the committee mandate specific content. But if there was anything else, I'm happy to answer any other questions. And as Steph mentioned, we can share that presentation around by email after the meeting.
Just a quick one, Amanda.
Yeah.
There used to be an email that came from the city about culture. Is that existing still?
The Creative Economy newsletter.
Yes.
Is that one? Yes. So that one still goes out. We don't have a marketing strategy per se for creative or for anything right now, but that's something that we have been working on. We do have a staff person who's been supporting us with that sort of stuff, but the Creative Barrie newsletter goes out probably about monthly now, I would say. It doesn't have a set date, but I'll be sending one out this week. And it's absolutely a great tool for sharing survey links, sharing updates about what's going on in the community. And certainly when we were forming this committee, we shared through that the opportunity for folks to apply to be on the committee.
So then can you send it to us? Because I don't get it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll send you all a link to subscribe. That way I'm not forcing you all to be on our newsletter, because lots of people get lots of newsletters, and it's Castle compatible. So I'll send that around as well.
Okay, great. So there's no more questions, and Stephanie.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that the discussion and questions sort of helps drive some of that mandate piece. What we thought we might do, we polled a handful of communities and their arts advisory. There are quite a few that are focused on public art, and we sort of have the public art committees. So we focused on those that have a more broader mandate related to the arts. I apologize, it's not a beautiful presentation. It is in Word document as we've been feverishly putting things together. So if you will bear with me here, I shall share my screen. Screen 2. Ta-da. So we polled a couple, and you are seeing my screen. Yes, that is what it's telling me. So we did put together, again, just that handful. So if we look at Brampton, Hamilton, Kingston, Brampton's was very particular. They pulled together a short-term panel that was really to provide council with recommendations on the role of the municipality in arts and culture and for the development of a cultural master plan. Hamilton was really around recommending activities for the stabilization and strengthening of the arts community, to monitor and assist with the implementation of the Arts Awards program and public art program, to inform council of issues and achievements in Hamilton arts community, and really acted as a point of contact for members of the art community and regarding issues affecting. So I think that hits on some of the things that you were just speaking about in your question and answer. Kingston focused on arts policies and strategies to serve the needs of the art community and in turn the residents of Kingston. So through regular communication with staff and council, the committee would foster awareness of the City of Kingston's corporate goals pertaining to the arts community. Ottawa's was quite simple, to advise Ottawa City Council on policy programs and service delivery in the area of arts, recreation, and culture. And again, all around advice around policy and programs. And St. Catharines was to advise City Council and staff on policies, plans, and programs related to the arts and cultural sector of St. Catharines. The committee will act as advocates for culture on behalf of the city within the community and provide informed perspectives on culture-related matters within. I also pulled a couple from East Gwillimbury and Welland. Their mission was to provide expert community input on public art policies, projects, and procedures, and then to also recommend activities for the stabilization and strengthening of the arts and culture community. Their objective was to provide encouragement to artists and arts organizations, foster the development and promote awareness of public arts and culture activities in East Gwillimbury, and the committee is a point of contact for members of the community, and they want to celebrate the social and economic benefits throughout the community and its role in creating quality of place. Welland has a series of objectives, and again, their purpose is to serve as an advisory capacity to council and staff on the advancement of arts and culture in the community. So again, advise staff regarding the implementation of a policy, provide forum for groups and organizations for promoting arts and cultural resources, advocacy on behalf of Welland's arts and culture communities, advice and guidance on the implementation of Welland's municipal arts and culture policies and bylaws, to advise on ways to increase the commitment and further public understanding of arts and culture issues, advice and guidance on the success of Welland's arts and culture funding, development, facility, community, and public arts and cultural activities, and to recommend changes, and to report on the state of the arts and culture in Welland and resulting social quality of life and economic impacts. So those are the samples we found. And then I did want to share locally, Barrie's mandate for active transportation, just so you have an example of how other committees within the city have put together their mandates. And I apologize, the font is extremely small. So for active transportation, their mandate is to promote and facilitate active transportation initiatives to promote the protection, maintenance, and awareness of the environment within the community, and to provide advice concerning environmental policy, planning, and sustainability. Heritage Barrie has a fairly extensive program worked out. Their mandate is responsible for establishing the criteria for the evaluation of properties of architectural or historical value, prepare and maintain a list of properties worthy of conservation. The committee keeps up to date all heritage conservation legislation and programs, makes recommendations to council programs worthy of consideration by the city, and provides information to property owners about the preservation of heritage properties, and supplies information about the conservation of such properties. And they have a fairly, they talk about the matters that they speak to and some of the initiatives they have going on. So really, this was to provide some framework or examples for you of what others have done, in hopes that it sort of helps with constructing that mandate. Maybe with that, I'll stop sharing, and then I will pass it back over to Greg. From what I understand from the governance piece, it would, whatever you come up with today, you wouldn't pass until your next meeting, just based on the agenda that was circulated. Is that correct, Brandy?
Sorry, my screen kind of hiccuped there, so I heard half of your question. I was listening. If I can get you to repeat that again.
Just in follow up to what Wendy said, we wouldn't pass the mandate this particular meeting. It could be put together, take away for thought, and then it would go on the agenda to be passed for next meeting. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, I did hear you correctly. Then it just kind of did like a robotic thing. Yeah, no, that's correct. So kind of take it away from this meeting here, kind of get it prepared, and we could do a discussion on the next meeting and get it all signed up, and we can, I guess, approve it at either the next meeting or the meeting following. So I have, just as a heads up, the next meeting would be December 21st.
Perfect.
So are there any other questions or comments on that list? I'm sure everybody's going to need some time to kind of go through it and digest it and figure out what we're actually going to do, because we're all just kind of, second meeting, we're all just kind of flying by the seat of our pants a little bit. So I'm sure we're going to need a little bit of time. But are there questions or comments or thoughts that anybody wants to bring up on that issue at all?
I think we need everybody to look at it and read these all over, and maybe everybody come up on their own with some idea. And I think then you'll get the great team effort if everybody has time. The other thing I would like to post beside these things is the population of those cities. Kingston, because I just talked to that culture manager who did that. They're like 135,000 or 150, somewhere in there. Brampton is probably larger than we are, and it's a bit different. It's not, or at least I perceive it as different. But I think looking at the populations of all those places will give us a bit of an indicator as to where we come in the mix. And we have to reach beyond where we are right now. But I do believe something comparable with a comparable city. I think Cambridge is in there. I can go look that one up. They're very similar to us, because I've just recently done this for public art. But I think looking at cities that are kind of like us, and I think Kingston is very similar to us, because they have, although we don't have a university, we are a small city with a significant college, and I think that's a great thing. Anyway, just my comments.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm also wondering, sorry, Claire Reedma, do you want to go first? I just started talking.
You go right ahead.
Okay. Okay. I'm just wondering, like, as perhaps a point of procedure, would it be possible for us, like, if we're going to be reviewing presentations and making decisions, would it be possible for us to get these documents or presentations like a day before, so that way we can come into these a bit more prepared, potentially with some questions ahead of time from our own review?
If I can jump in there, anybody is more than welcome to submit to me anything that they would like circulated to the committee. because I have the committee all on one distribution list. So Stephanie, if you wanted to send that information to me for the committee to look at, come up with ideas, do a bit of homework, by all means, I could submit that to the committee, or you can do that yourself. When it comes to the presentations that generally come up with the meetings, I generally try and ask for them before the meeting, so I can incorporate them with the minutes. Sometimes they come the day of, sometimes they come the next day, but I am more than happy to basically send that out to the committee as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I just find like Zoom fatigue with presentations, it like
Absolutely.
accentuates it. Like yeah, so it's hard for me to process information.
And Claire?
Sure. I think that one of the things we have to remember as a committee, that this committee is established by council. And that means that this committee is the voice of the arts community to council. And you're advising our council on what arts policy and direction we should be taking. We have other organizations, and I really think Janet was right on, is that we have to sort of spread our net really wide to gather all the other inputs that we might need. But for example, we have the BAA, the Barrie Arts Alliance, which is a group of arts communities or arts activities that have gotten together. And certainly they have a voice, but they don't have an automatic voice to council. And that is a huge difference. And I think that in our terms of reference or whatever we're going to strike, I think we need to remember that our principal role is to advise council. And that's I think how we need to structure whatever we're going to create as a mandate. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. Any other comments on the mandate or questions about that at all? Okay, doesn't look like there's.
Oh, sorry, Greg. I'm seeing Scott has his hand raised.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Or I could just put my hand up. So the question I would have is, we're going to get this, the documents we just saw, we're going to get them sent to us, and then each of us to look at a mandate for the committee. Kind of going with what Ian's talking about. Could we be, or should we be sharing what we think, what our concept is with each other, and then everyone can see what everybody else did, and then perhaps in the next meeting we take a chunk from here and a chunk from there to make what we want to do, because otherwise we're going to have 8 of us, and then we're going to each individually review what we showed. We're not going to have any time to review anybody else's, and then we're going to try to, in a 2-hour span, put a mandate together. So again, if we can get pre-information of what everyone thinks it should be, or even the elements of it, is like a few days before, is we can bit and piece and come up with something probably better from the whole than from one of us, and it can all be shared and it can be quicker.
Perhaps through a Google Doc or something like that.
Yeah, it would have to be through something like Google Docs. The last thing you want to see is a million different emails and people's ideas, everybody hitting reply to all, and it kind of bleeds crazy. But everybody, if we can, it's a great procedure though. If we can get it something in Google Docs set up, and then everybody can kind of put their ideas in point form, it stops much less repetitive that way, and make it much more efficient going into the next meeting for sure. So that would be a great idea. Thanks, Scott. Does anybody who wants to set up? Does the city? Can the city take care of setting up something like that, or Ian, perhaps setting up Google Docs, or what's the best procedure for that for committees such as this?
Yeah, how do you guys share docs, Stephanie? And the only other comment I'd make is, could we not think about a reminder 1 week before the meeting? And Greg, I don't even know you, but you seem pretty on top of things. Might you read them if they came in and kind of quasi put it together so people could comment, because I think looking at all of them, there'll be nuggets of everything. And if you took it on that to kind of make it, and then everybody says, oh, I'd like to see this. And then somebody says, no, not really, but we could do it like this. It might make like, I'm all about efficiency, and Stephanie knows this from my meetings. So I don't like needless chatter when it could be actually done in an effective way, but I think that's effective. A reminder a week before, it comes out to everybody. It'll take you an hour or two to look at it, or go back, look at it once, go back. Then it goes to Greg in a timely fashion. You can even do it 2 weeks before. So a week before, he had time to look at it, and he cobbled together what looked like it, it looked like to him after reading everything, because we're guaranteed people are going to put the same things down.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I kind of suggested maybe doing it in point form. And yeah, I was kind of planning on doing that anyways, to summarize it before the next meeting, once they came into Google Docs. Because again, you don't want to be reading the same point 7 different times with 7 different phrasings. As long as we get the point form approved, then like the actual points, I'll summarize, then we can approve that at the next meeting, and then approve the final wording, perhaps the meeting after that. Just because you want to take a little bit of care in how you're actually wording it to make sure there's no confusion and everything's pretty clear. So, but that's great, Janet. I think that would probably be the way to go forward. I'm big on the efficiency too. I don't like wasting a ton of time in meetings. We're all busy and we're all taking time out of other projects to do something like this that we're not getting compensated for, really. So it's efficiency is going to be really important in all our procedures that way. So. But again, it goes back to I do want the other question though. Would the city be responsible for setting something like that up, that kind of document sharing, or as a committee do we have to appoint somebody to do it? I don't know what the normal procedure is for that.
Or do we?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I've not been through this before, so
I don't know if it even matters, but I don't want.
Randy, is that a question for Wendy or?
Can we cowboy up and just have Greg send us a Google Doc? I'm a cowboy.
Well, most of the committees have actually kind of band together and done stuff like that themselves.
Yeah.
I've had one committee that had sent me information to do a few things with, but these committees have been going on for some time now. So this is a baby committee, brand new committee, just starting out. So
I have no problem with the committee actually doing it or getting somebody on here. I just didn't want to, if it was standard procedure for the city to actually set something like that up. I just wanted to make sure we weren't stepping on any toes that way.
Well, I could definitely talk to Wendy, and I could send her response out to the committee so everybody knows, but it wouldn't hurt to kind of, I guess, get the ball rolling, if you will, at this point here, and then
yeah, if we could do that. You know what, I think Ian's pretty good at stuff like that, so maybe we could get him to set up the actual file sharing thing. I don't want to volunteer you, but I will request that you do it if it does fall in our lap to go ahead with that. Would you be comfortable with that?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
okay.
I can do that. No problem.
I appreciate that. That's awesome. Thank you.
You know, the one thing, could I just add?
Please, Jerry, go ahead.
I've been involved in a few, exercises like this. Don't try to cover all the bases. In other words, you can try to get too specific with it, and if you do that, you're sort of setting yourself up almost for failure. It should be broad enough to say what the committee does, but also it should stand the test of time. In other words, next year we don't want to look at it and say, well, now we have a new mandate because we didn't include this. So I understand that everybody wants to be touched by this, but let's do it in a way that is sort of an umbrella statement that is broad enough and vague enough that allows us a little bit of flexibility, but at the same time covers what we do.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. All right, so there's no other comments on that. That really kind of covers the basis for what was on the agenda and what we had to go through today, as far as I'm aware. I always do like to ask, though, if it's okay at the end of the meetings, unless somebody, just if there's any other points anybody wants to bring up, anything else that we need to be considering or adding to the agenda before the next meeting, before we move forward. Does anybody have anything they want to add?
I have a couple questions for staff, if there's time for that.
Sure, but I think Scott beat you. He had his hand up first.
Yeah, so Scott did beat me.
We're going to hand it over to Scott first of all, and then we'll go right to you after that.
Sure. I was just with what we're talking about is we should probably set a date of when whatever format we're going to Google Docs or whatever is, we should set a deadline so that everyone has, okay, by, I don't know, December the 5th, everything goes in that document so that there's a 2-week span where it can be reviewed and worked on by whoever wants to work on it.
I was kind of going with the 1-week reminder that Janet had mentioned before is kind of the point for that. So it would be that like 1 week really should be, it's not going to take a ton of time because it's not a terribly long document. Everybody's going to have a couple of points to go through. So if everybody's comfortable with that, I was kind of taking that 1 week as probably the cutoff for that. And that would go before the reminder. So that would, if the meeting's on the 21st, then on the 14th, would be the final day that we would request any comments or any points that somebody wanted to bring up for the mandate. Does that make sense then?
Makes sense to me because I suggested it.
Okay, yeah, and I'm just running with that. So, and then Ian, if you want to maybe within the week have that OneDrive or whatever set up. My impression from seeing you in other committees, you'll probably have it done within much less than that. But if you could kind of
the doc's already been created, and I just shared it with
I
Randy.
was wondering if that would be the case. So that would be great. So then if you can send out the information to the group whenever it's convenient for you, and then we'll make the 14th the final request date for any comments on the mandate, if that works for you. And then I'll try to then by the 17th, so people have a weekend, kind of have a summary doc on there for you as well. So that gives a couple of days to look over the summary, and it should make a nice, it'll be the focal point for our next meeting. So, but it should make it go fairly quickly, I would think so. And then Ian, you had a couple of points or questions, yeah?
Yeah, a couple questions. So obviously yesterday, the cultural granting program was discussed at City Council or General Committee or whatever. And I was just wondering about the wording of something, Stephanie, if you don't mind. So in the staff report, it says the organization's head office must be located within Simcoe County and the funded activities occurring in the city. Does that mean that the grants are just for things that are happening in Barrie? I'm just wondering about that funded activities occurring in the city.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to jump in. So I mean, we understand that operating funding is broad, right? It might be covering things like insurance costs, staffing, those types of things. So obviously it's hard to say, everything's going to necessarily happen. I understand you've done shows in Aurelia, in Oro-Medonte. So we did actually soften that language because the initial recommendation was that everything be in Barrie, and we understand that we have soft borders here in Simcoe County, and so that's why we changed it. So for more so the projects and the capacity building stuff, that's what we want to see. Obviously, that those dollars being spent here in Barrie, we wouldn't want to give an organization $5,000 for them to go put a show on in Gravenhurst, right? That's not really going to work with what our funding is meant to do. So that's where we clarified there. But as far as operating funding goes, when it's going to a broad base of costs that are covering an organization's entire season or year, it's hard to kind of nitpick those things. But thanks for clarifying that with me.
Yeah, no, thank you for that clarification. I was just wondering because I know a couple companies do touring in the region and stuff, so I thought I would just bring that.
So since we're on that topic, it did come up, I guess it was yesterday at the council meeting. Is there a document of what that funding now is? It looks like Ian probably went on there and studied it.
There's a guidelines document attached as an appendix to the staff report. So that covers off what the fund is for, who's eligible, how much funding can be asked for, and how the scoring works. The applications themselves will be updated following the approval of those guidelines by council, and then they'll be available for organizations to apply for through our website. And we'll absolutely be sharing all of that information with you folks so that you can make sure it gets out to all of the right people in the community so that they know about the program and can apply.
And where can we see that now?
If you go to our Legistar, so if you go to council meetings and minutes, our agendas and minutes in our website, barrie.ca, go through council, there's a Legistar link, and it'll be in last night's general committee minutes. Perfect. Oh, sorry, the minutes might not be there. It'll be in the agenda.
Randy, can we circulate with all of the follow-up that we're sending out?
Do you want the minutes or the attachments, the report itself?
The report
report
itself. Could we
itself,
do
yeah.
that?
Will do.
Thank you, Brandy.
No problem.
And Ian, I think you had another question, did you?
Yeah, I do. This one's for Rob and or Steph. So in Mayor Lehman's letter about, the 300 million in cuts or whatever, something that he mentioned was development charges could be earmarked for things like parks and recreation. And I was wondering if arts and culture might be included in those development charges.
I'm gonna laugh at that one. Oh, who's gonna answer that one? It's
I'm
very
going to say, honestly, I
don't
don't know
know.
the answer.
I
We'd
don't
have
either.
to talk to finance, honestly, to understand what's in what can be considered. I know the framework, we do our background studies, but unless, Rob, I don't know if you're
Yeah,
in the
no, I
same
agree with you
boat.
100%, Stephanie.
I wouldn't want to
The-
speculate.
Yeah, the criteria around where development charges go is specifically through the government and their identifications of what development charges can be utilized for. So you would have to talk, finance would be the individuals that would be able to identify if we could utilize that for arts type of funding.
So some of us from the Barrie Arts Alliance actually talked to the provincial ministry in charge, and because there's a lot of misconceptions about that, and a lot of people seem to think that arts and culture cannot be used, the development charges cannot be used to support that. However, it turns out there's nothing in the legislation that prevents that. So it would be a great thing. I mean, if we're going to be funding sports and such like that, it would be great to include that funding for the arts and culture and the development charges. So I think there's probably a long process to make it happen, but it can be done. So.
Yeah, thank you, Greg.
Yeah, no problem.
The other question that was brought up by the Alliance, so I thought I would just pass it along, is from my understanding, there's a bit of confusion about the Simcoe Street Road expansion, and if perhaps there's been any progress on, understanding where that extension is going to go for the discussions about the Performing Arts Center and its layout and all that kind of stuff. How much land is available? That's
Rob, did you want to say otherwise? Okay.
No, I don't have any information in regards to the Simcoe Street actual layout for that. That's not something that I have any information on, but I think Stephanie might.
Yeah, go ahead, Stephanie.
So the road was proposed as part of the site plan associated with HIP. And as I understand it, there is a new site plan that is to be submitted. So we don't have a current layout at this point. It was something that I believe through planning that was desired. So, I think there are some rough, but I think we don't have a time frame at this point. But I think we have a fairly good sense of what the developable area is. Certainly there is some variable in that, but I think we've got a fairly good sense of where that is. And I think hopefully by the time we get to a design place, that will be better defined.
okay. Thank you. And I guess sort of tied in with all of that. Sorry, I'm the one asking all the big questions.
Right.
The other question that was brought up was in that 2006 culture plan. Apparently, and I of course was not here at that time, but apparently the H block had also been considered as a potential site for a performing arts center. Obviously, I know there's been some back and forth with the YMCA and stuff, but I was wondering if in those task force discussions it had been brought up as something else that could be explored, since it was already in the approved plan.
Well, since that culture plan had been developed in 2015, and I think before, there had been a rationalization of downtown parking lots, where we were asked to put together a strategy to look at our parking lots from an asset perspective and how they could be redeveloped to support some of the intensification and some of the other pieces that we're looking for our downtown. So that parcel had been identified as a way future down the road. So in terms of the the Performing Arts Center. It was not considered because at that point we had the Fisher site. And if you look at the Culture Master Plan, it also says, look at your Fisher site and improve that as a facility. And we own the lot, you know, from and some of that anchoring again that had evolved from that creative corridor perspective and having sort of your east and west. So those were sort of the strategic rationales for looking at that. And I believe, and I'd have to pull out my GIS map and do the measuring, but I think you actually get a greater area out of the former Fisher site than you actually do H block. So I think that those were some of the rationales for keeping it where it was.
Okay,
There were
thank you.
actually, just expand on that a little bit with the Performing Arts Center Task Force. We did actually see some of the drawings with some of the potential original ideas of where the site was laid out. However, because it's changing, it doesn't really make sense to kind of run with that too much or get that, because it will be changing. But we did talk about other sites as well, not just the H block. There was a few other potential sites that were kind of brought up, but they were all relatively quickly dismissed, sometimes for pretty obvious reasons. And the other thing is that everybody's kind of ready to put to go ahead with the Fisher site. It's just simpler that way, and it basically meets all the goals. So rather than starting out with a whole new process of site exploration and all that, which can take months, if not years, to actually figure out, I think everybody is pretty happy in the end with the task force to go ahead with the Fisher Auditorium site.
Fair enough.
Developing that, but yeah.
Great.
Any further
Those are all
questions?
my
on that? Any more questions at all?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Anybody else with questions or thoughts, ideas, anything you want to bring forward to the group? Okay, so as far as I can see by the agenda, that's really all we have for today. I don't know, Amanda, Stephanie, if you guys have anything else you want to bring forward yet, or?
No, actually, I was going to give the update on the Culture Grant staff report going through last night. So Ian beat me to it, which is great, and which is great news. And certainly your support as we get it out there and launch it to help spread the word, I think will be critical. And again, really looking forward to see from a mandate how you know, we can support each other in terms of the work that we're trying to get done departmentally, and as well where you see opportunity and how we can support with that. So no, thank you.
Excellent. All right, so if there's nothing else, then I guess motion to adjourn.
Have a great day, everybody. We'll see
All
you
right.
December 21st.
All right.
Thanks for
a lot.
next meeting.
Yeah.
Thanks.